A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today, so cheers. Oh, delicious. Now, a few weeks ago, I basically reviewed the Moonshae Trilogy by Douglas Niles, Darkwalker on Moonshae, Black Wizards, and Darkwell. Today I'm bringing you book one of the Druidhome Trilogy by Douglas Niles. This is Prophet of Moonshae. Now, this book is set 20 years after the original trilogy and primarily deals with the children of High King Tristan Kendrick and the High Queen Robin. Pardon me. Now, let's talk about this cover, if you can actually see it there properly. Absolutely beautiful cover. We have Princess Alicia there, and I believe this is Brandon, a character we will meet in the story. I had the Druidhome Trilogy in novel form back in the day, but I never actually read them. There were other things that I wanted to read. They just kind of sat on my shelf. When I finished the Moonshae Trilogy, I figured, you know what? Why not go and read the sequel trilogy to see kind of what it's like. What did I think? This one was okay. It was a Dungeons and Dragons novel, sorry. It was fantasy. There were cliches, there were tropes. It was a whole thing, but ultimately it was a fun read. I'm not complaining about it. You kind of get what you get. And that is a story with the children of the main character from the first story, or the first trilogy, although there are characters from the first trilogy that show up. Tavish, the greater bard. We get Newt, the fairy dragon, who played a big part in the earlier novels. But yeah, ultimately it's just much of the same. So if you enjoyed the first trilogy, you are going to enjoy this. If you hated the first trilogy, you're not going to enjoy this. That's all there is to it. So that's my spoiler-free review. But if you want a spoiler-filled review, stick around for the next episode of...
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Okay, so I just finished this book this morning. So it's kind of fresh in my mind, at least the ending is. I might miss some things here and there. So, those of you that might remember the first trilogy or watched my reviews of the first trilogy, you had the goddess Earth Mother, who was the goddess of the Moonshae Isles, and the god of murder Baal was trying to kind of kill her and take over the Moonshae Isles. She died at the end of the trilogy, and new kind of gods came in, Shantia. In this book, we have clerics of Helm and things along those lines. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look up Gods of the Forgotten Realms. I'm not going to fucking explain them to you. Now, what's happening in this, at least in this book, I don't know about the rest of the trilogy because I've just started book 2, but instead of Baal trying to take over the islands, it's Talos, the god of storms. So it's kind of exactly the same plot, only this time he uses a Dracolich and a priest and weather and all of that kind of stuff. Now, the book begins with this ancient dragon, Gotha, who has just lived for so long and doesn't want to die, and Talos offers to give the dragon immortal life, thus turning him into a Dracolich. Those of you that are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons know that's not how a Dracolich is created, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. Doesn't really matter. So this is 20 years after Darkwell ended. Tristan and Robin have 2 children. The eldest daughter, Alicia, and Alicia's younger sister, Deirdre. Deirdre is very jealous of Alicia. That's something that comes into play a little later on in the novel. But ultimately, the Moonshae Isles have been racked by storms, so crops are not growing, and the High King has to go to the Sword Coast in order to secure grain and food and things like that. And he uses gold from the mines of one of his vassals, this nobleman called Blackstone. At the beginning of the novel, Blackstone's son is killed after he kills a prophet that comes and warns of danger. So we have Blackstone coming, the Earl of Blackstone coming to Caer Callidere and wanting to mine more gold, but to do so he must destroy the site of a moonwell. Now a moonwell is this area that was sacred to the goddess, but the goddess has been dead, and so the moonwells are kind of all stagnant. There's no druids on the Moonshae Isles anymore. Tristan has to go to the Sword Coast to secure food, so he tells his wife Robin, you go and determine whether or not the moonwell should be saved or whether the Earl can mine for gold there. Robin succumbs to a sickness and ends up sending Alicia along with her tutor, this man called Keen, who is secretly a wizard, and Tavish the bard kind of joins along with them. So while this is happening, Deirdre, I should say, is getting visits from this mysterious stranger called Malawar, and we kind of get this darkness to her. She's kind of like, she's evil, but she's not, because she doesn't quite understand what's going on in the world itself. So Tristan goes off to the Sword Coast. Robin is laid down with this weakness that has been cast upon her by Talos, and Alicia, Keen, and Tavish go to Blackstone, and they meet the Earl of Blackstone, who Alicia already knows. They meet his son Gwyeth and Hanrold, who a lot of people believe is an illegitimate bastard son because Blackstone's wife had an affair. But that's never kind of discussed in the book. They decide to go up to the Moonwell and see it for themselves. Now, while this is going on, there is a plot to get the Northmen and the folk to go to war by setting each other up. So you have people disguised as Northmen attacking folk towns and people disguised as folk attacking Northman towns in order to try and get them into war. So the King of Nalhelm sends his son Brandon to kind of go and sort all this shit out. While Alicia and Tavish and Keen are at the Moonwell, kind of camping out, they get attacked by an iron golem that was created by Malawar, and in the destruction of this iron golem, they inadvertently bring the Moonwell back to life, which is a sign that the goddess Earth Mother is not actually dead or that she has been resurrected, which brings hope to a lot of people. In the interim, the Dracolich has recruited the help of the Sahuagin from 20 years earlier, the king of the Sahuagin from 20 years earlier, who are now following Talos because they were despondent that the High Priestess and her plans for Baal kind of petered out at the end of that book. So they go raiding and all kinds of adventurous shit happens. Coming back from the Moonwell, the Earl of Blackstone has this idea that he will send his son up because he knows that Northmen are coming to Caer Callidare to negotiate with the king and find out exactly what's going on. So if he ambushes them with the king's arrows and weaponry, then it's going to help kind of fuel the war. And that's a good thing because Blackstone is in league with Maliwa and is a traitorous piece of shit. So, Gwyeth and his men do that. The Northmen, led by Brandon, believe that they're under attack from the folk. In the meantime, Alicia, Keen, and Tavish, as well as Hanrold, who has come up to the Moonwell with them, are ambushed by Newt. And Newt says, I've been waiting here because I knew you were coming and there's something I have to show you. They send Hanrold off to talk to his father while they go to where Newt finds this tomb, and is the tomb of Cimrich Hugh, who was the first High King of the Moonshae Isles. They go into this tomb and they discover these treasures, and each one of them picks out a treasure. The bard Tavish picks a new harp. Keen picks a ring, and Alicia picks these braces that are made up of kind of rings, which never actually play a part in the story, but I'm sure they will in the next two books. As they come out of the tomb, they're ambushed by Brandon and the Northmen that have survived the ambush by Blackstone's men, and they're taken prisoner, but ultimately they win their respect, and Alicia decides, listen, we should go back to Brandon's father, the king, and we'll explain our problem, and we'll see what he has to say. So they journey across the sea to Nalhelm. Okay, what happens next? Jesus Christ, this was a convoluted book. I need a drink. Hanrold makes it back to Blackstone, tells his father what's going on. His father doesn't believe him. That night, he uses a secret passage to eavesdrop on his father and his older brother, and realizes that they're actually traitors to the king and they're going to destroy the Moonwell. So he decides to find Alicia and basically let her know what is going on. The Earl of Blackstone leaves for Caer Callidare. Gwyeth leaves for the Moonwell, and Hanrold, who is supposed to be hunting, leaves to track down the princess. Doesn't find her, finds a couple of trolls. So this guy fights two trolls, beats them, sets them on fire. In D&D, that's how you have to kill a troll. You've got to set them on fire, or they do not die. They just regenerate. Epic battle, so well described by Douglas Niles. Just a lot of fun that chapter was. It was really, really great. In the troll fight, Hanrold's horse gets killed, so he's now wandering around on foot. Now, something I didn't mention, which I probably should have at the beginning, but the prophet that came to Blackstone's castle at the beginning, or manor, I should say, at the beginning, and was killed, and then Blackstone's son was killed, causes all of his dogs to leave. All of the hounds that Blackstone has just run away. This is important if you understand, or if you've read the first trilogy, because they have the pack. And the pack was, the children of the goddess was the pack of wolves, but this is a pack of hounds, which ultimately find Hanrold and lead him to the Moonwell. Deirdre is being visited by Maliwa, who is unlocking her potential. She swears an oath to Talos, although she is not a cleric like Maliwa is. She's in fact a sorceress. So her potential has been unlocked. And she meets with Earl Blackstone, who kind of tells her what is going on. Maliwa influences that, and then they go to the Moonwell. In Nalhelm, Alicia meets with the king, who doesn't believe her at first, but then some furbolgs come in a boat, which is uncalled of, like never heard of before, and they explain that the Sahuagin and this dragon are killing Northmen and killing folk, and the leader of these furbolgs is Yak. Yak was the furbolg that Tavish kind of tamed with his music back in Darkwell, and he has been kind of leading this clan of furbolgs peacefully, as opposed to the giant marauders that they were in the past. They decide to sail across the ocean back to Caer Callidare, and Brandon kind of leads them on his ship, the Gullwing, and they kind of all pile on board and they go across, and the seas are choppy because of Talos. They get attacked by the Dracolich. They get attacked by another group of Northmen who are pretending to be Northmen, and Keen uses the ring to stop the Dracolich's fire. The Dracolich gets wounded and kind of fucks off, and then they land. And so you've got this thing going on at the Moonwell, and then you've got this thing going on with the Northmen, and they've got this thing going on with Princess Alicia, and then there's all kinds of stuff happening. The Sahuagin slink away because they're like, this isn't our fucking fight. The Dracolich is told by Talos to go to the Moonwell, and Gwyeth and his men kind of go up there, and there's a druid there, one of the apprentice druids, who has kind of rediscovered his power through talismans from his other druid friends, and he is kind of holding them off, but Gwyeth overpowers him. At the same time, Hanro comes with his dogs, the Moorhounds, and he and his brother fight, and the Dracolich comes, and then Maliwa comes, and Deirdre comes, and the Earl of Blackstone comes, and then everyone else comes on a giant rainbow, because, you know, why the fuck not? It's a rainbow. And ultimately, everything kind of happens at this Moonwell while there are pilgrims kind of watching. Gwyeth is killed by his brother. The cleric that Earl Blackstone kind of pays is taken into the elemental plane of air by an air elemental he summoned, but ultimately lost control of because of Newt. Newt harries the Dracolich into rage. The Dracolich attacks Alicia. Alicia, for some reason, manages to drag the Dracolich into the Moonwell, and the Dracolich is killed. I don't really know what happened there. And everyone kind of fucking wins in the end. Deirdre realizes she's been used by Maliwa, the cleric of Talos, and ends up killing him with a bolt of Talos, which is one of these new powers that she has. It's a jumbled mess of fucking awesomeness. And it's one of these books that, unless you've read the first trilogy, it doesn't really make all that much sense. At the end of the novel, they're back in Caer Callidare. Robin is fine. The weakness spell has been lifted. They're feasting. And then they get this notification that there is a ship that has travelled from the Sword Coast that is coming to Caer Callidare that has been sunk. And that ship was carrying the High King Tristan Kendrick. And that is where the book ends. I wasn't going to read the second one straight away. There was another book that I was keen to read, but when you end on that, I've got to find out what the fuck happens. So I will be reading The Coral Kingdom as my next Kindle book and Kindle review. But ultimately, what did I think of Prophet of the Moonshaes? It was fun. I mean, these old Dungeons and Dragons novels are fun, especially if you know the world. And that's really the main problem. The main problem with these books is they're written for people that know the world. There is not a lot of world building involved, and that can be problematic for a lot of people. I understand that. I really do. But if you like fantasy, if you want to have a good time, this has iron golems, an undead dragon, evil clerics, trolls. It's kind of got everything. It's got druids, it's got magic, it's the whole fucking gamut. Highly recommend this as a glimpse into the past of Dungeons and Dragons. Not necessarily the future, but the past. So, there you have it. That's my review. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I have about half of this beer left, so everyone stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. But most importantly, read a fucking book.